This is Rabbi Tobin. Today is the 22nd of July, 2019. I'll be right back. I'm going to go see what's for lunch.
Leftovers that nobody wanted on Saturday.
Where's the water? I don't know. There's a water fountain around the corner.
Yeah, I walked down to the water fountain. There's hot water,
I'm just going to grab some fruit.
dirty hot water.
Hot water and coffee.
And what are all the working men fixing?
I don't know. Routine maintenance.
They're making work.
We have painters in here who
It's a
do stuff
WPA
for
project.
holidays and
'Cause I know they have the circuit box over.
Yeah, I don't know. I do Talmud and Torah. I don't do electrical boxes and painted walls. Hello, everyone. Here we are. Who has us on what page?
31B2.
31B2.
last-
Ooh, we are
last
so
paper.
close.
Yeah.
We are so close to the end of a chapter. All right. Then, Taka, we have a decision to make. Okay.
5.
31B2. Did we stop right there where there's a break that says the Gemara presents another statement of Rav Dimi?
Yes.
Okay, 31B2. Here comes Rav Dimi. Kiata Rav Dimi, Amar Rav Yochanan. When Rav Dimi arrived in Babylonia, hello, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Hatokef et chavero badin, Echad omer nadun kan, ve'echad omer nelech lemakom havad, kofim oto ve'yelech lemimkot havad. Okay, so Rav Dimi said, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, a teaching from the land of Israel. So Rav Dimi comes from Israel. In most Babylonian sugiot, which is what we have, the Babylonian Talmud, a rabbi coming from the land of Israel to Bavel, to Babylonia, is coming with authority. All right, so even though they may be of the same generation, the fact that they were in the land of Israel and they learned it in the land of Israel, where the Mishnah was codified, brings them more authority. So you have to hear their stuff. So you have a few guys like Ula and Dimi, and it's Ki Atum Imarava, when they come from the west. All right? And it always brings a challenge. All right, so what do we have here? In the name of Rabbi Yochanan, he says, one harasses his fellow-in-law. In other words, I'm suing you. And there's a matter of law that you and I are arguing over, and I want an outcome. And I want an outcome now. Have you ever had anybody treat you in this manner?
Yeah.
Right? People behave this way. All right? And he says, let us litigate our cases here, right now. I'm going to grab Ron and Ronnie, and we're going to make a Beit Din, and we're going to try my case here and now, no matter what. And the other one says, no, let's go to a proper court. Right? What do? You force him to go to the proper court. So, why is that so difficult? What's the chidush? Why do we need this teaching? Is that obvious? Is that not obvious? What's your first reaction?
Well, there's expense involved and time involved.
All right, so there's expense and time in going to the proper court. Maybe you would think you don't have to do that. All right? All right, let's see what happens. Rabbi Yochanan's ruling was questioned and overturned in Bavel. Amar lefanav Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar said before him, Rabbi, mi shenoseh b'chavero mane, if a person has a claim from his fellow for a mane, which is a certain amount of coins, yotzi mane al mane, should he be forced to spend a mane to collect a mane, which is exactly what Ronnie said. There's a cost involved in going to the court. So if I'm suing you for $50, but it's going to cost me $50 to file in small claims court,
It doesn't pay.
why would the law make me file in small claims court? Right? Ela kofimote v'dam be'yaro. But he should do it right where he is, in his own town. Okay, so Itmar Nami, similarly it's been stated, Amar Rav Safra, Amar Ravi, or Amar Ravi Yochanan, Rav Safra said, Shnaim shenit atzmu badin, two are fighting with each other in a matter of law. Echad omer nadun kan. One says, let's do it here. Ve'echad omer nelech lemakom havad. The other says, let's go to the other place. Kofim oto v'dan be'iro. So we actually have the opposite of the first Rav Dimi teaching as another teaching that has been handed down. So we have completely conflicting versions of this. Ve'im hutzrach davar lish'ol, but this second version has some more information. And if something needs to be asked of a higher authority, kotvim v'sholchim, you write it in the local town and you send the question to the place where the major court normally presides. Ve'im amar kitvu utnu li me'eza tam dantuni, write and give me a document explaining why you judged against me in that way. Kotvim unitonim lo, they must write and give it to him. So, what's the difference? Rav Dimi says, according to Rabbi Yochanan, if somebody's forcing another guy in a matter of law, and he says, let's do it here, and the other guy says, let's take it to the Vad, they make him take it to the Vad, wherever that is. There's a second teaching that says, no, that's silly, based on this concept of why would you make him go through all the trouble and expense to go to this other place to collect this small amount of money? And the answer to that is, okay, you can solve it in your local town unless there's some complexity in the law that requires the special knowledge of the higher court, in which case they rule one way, but they say we have a question about it, and they send their ruling with the question to the higher authority, and they ask the higher authority to write basically a response back to them explaining why the law is this way. Why is that a better system?
Saves money.
Saves money. What else does it do? It's got lots of positives. Just think it through.
Doesn't waste the higher court's time on a case.
The higher court's only hearing specialized things. The Superior Court of New Jersey should not be hearing about the tree that fell down in my backyard, right? That's an easy case. The local court can handle that. What if there's something particularly weird about the case of the tree that fell on my, then it's going to work its way up. And the higher courts are only going to deal with the things that higher courts really should be dealing with. So it's saving their time and reserving their expertise. There's a third piece of this. Why have them write back the response? Why not just send back their ruling?
Well, don't they have to explain their ruling?
No, they're the judges. They don't have to explain anything to anybody. Remember, in some ways, they're not even allowed to say why. Like after the court has ruled, the judge can't come up and say, you know what, we were talking about, it went this way, and I voted this way, and you voted that way. They're not even allowed to do that.
But I don't understand your question. What's the difference between?
Why don't they just get a ruling from the higher court? Why does the higher court write them back why?
Oh, okay. So that if the case, something like that comes up again, the local authorities know how to deal with
Correct.
it.
It educates the local court how to behave in similar cases. It sets precedent law. Same way our courts work today. You have a ruling from the Supreme Court, and what happens? They explain their ruling. They don't just vote and bring down the gavel. They write these whole legal essays and briefs about why it is the way it is. I don't know what the technical term for that is. And then sometimes the people who voted against it write their reasoning,
It's essential.
right? In the American system, they do that so that both thoughts are available to future justices to consider, right, as far as precedent law. Here, this is actually an example of creating a literature of precedent law. It's kind of cool, right? It's just a hint. Rav Safra's statement continues, turning to a related subject. Okay. Ve ha-yavama holechet achar ha-yavam lahatir. A yavama goes after the yavam in his locale to make her permitted to marry others through chalitza. So what is this? The Liverite marriage law in Torah goes like this. A woman and a man are married, and unfortunately, he dies before she has children. By biblical law, his brother, and then in order of age, is mandated to father a child with the widow.
Even though he's married?
Men can have multiple wives. And the Torah has to father a child with the widow, and the child is named for the dead guy. So the child will inherit the dead guy. Okay, and that way the family properties and everything would stay where they were supposed to be before the untimely death of the deceased. That's the system.
That assumes a son, though.
Then she can marry somebody
Well,
else.
daughters can inherit if there are no other sons, but then they also have to marry within the tribe.
But then she can marry somebody else.
Okay, let's not get too far away. She can marry someone else after that,
After that.
but not before that. Okay? Now, that brother is called the Yavam, because the verb to engage in this form of almost marital relations is called liyabem or yibum. He is the Yavam, and she is the Yivama. They're the Liverites. He is the Liveriter, and she is the Liveritee. All right, so he is the Yavam, she is the Yivama. Okay? And there's a whole tractate of Talmud about this process called Yivamot. Okay, so what's he saying? The Yivama goes after the Yavam in order to permit herself. So, what if the brother doesn't give a darn? I'm not interested. I don't want to father a child with this woman. I either find it weird, or I find her icky, or my wife will kill me, or whatever it is.
He
Right?
doesn't want to.
Oh, he just doesn't care. Maybe, maybe he just doesn't care. Whatever reason he's not engaging in this practice, she can't marry until this is taken care of.
It's not fair.
You're going to tell God he's not fair? But it's a stringency, it's a restriction, it's a problem, and so what's she going to do? She's going to say, fine, you don't want to have a kid with me?
I'll find somebody else.
And there's a Taurus ritual that she engages in. Throws her shoe at him, she spits at him, she curses him, basically, and he accepts all that and walks away. Her pride and dignity is maintained, and now she is free.
It's almost like she's getting a get from him.
No, now she's free.
So the process is called chalitza, which means the loosening of a sandal. All right? So through chalitza, she is released, and now she can go marry.
Why did Tamara do that?
What?
Why did Tamara not do that?
Tamar, why didn't Tamar do that? She wanted the baby. She really wanted to do this mitzvah. She's a righteous woman. That's why. Pardon my coughing, I'm gonna cough again. I don't think any liquid or anything is gonna help. It's not my throat, it's actually my lungs.
Well, came back.
We'll just try and fight, it's been there all along. I just didn't take any cough syrup today. All right, so let's see. Here we go. So what's happening? Ad kama. All right, so she goes to the locale. She goes after him because, thank you. She goes after him because she wants him to take care of his responsibilities, one way or the other. Okay, and then the question is ad kama. Up until what point? Like, does she have to go to India to find him? Does she have to go, across the Mediterranean? Where does she have to go to do this in order to be free? Okay, so if your husband dies and you have no kids, and he has a brother who moved to Taiwan,
You have to go to Taiwan.
do you have to go all the way to Taiwan to get this taken care of?
What if he has no brother?
Well, then it doesn't matter. Then the mitzvah doesn't apply. She can remarry. No problem. All right, Amar Rabbi Ami. Rabbi Ami says, Afil mitaveria litzipori, from one end of the land of Israel to the other, basically. Well, not even. Tiberias is on the Sea of Galilee, on the Kinneret, on the west coast, which if you look, do I have a map of Israel here? Does everyone know the map of Israel? Or I'll do a, no. Some people said yes, but you're not speaking for everyone in the room. All right. This takes a second. Here's the Sinai Peninsula. This is Africa, Egypt. This is the Sinai. Here's the Dead Sea. Right? Nope. I just put the Dead Sea in the middle of Jordan. In this map, here's the Dead Sea. Here's the Jordan River, the Kinneret, Okay? This is Lebanon, this is Syria, and this is kind of biblical Israel in this area. Okay? Tzipori is here, and Tiberias is here. Not so far. Now, they didn't have cars,
Back in the day was.
and this is uphill, but still, it's like a one-day journey. All right? That's a one-day journey, as far as you need to go in one day. By the way, the northern part of Israel, from Tiberias to Tzipori, is where the main concentration of Jews lived after the destruction of Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is destroyed in 70, Bar Kokhba is in the 130s. By 150, Jews are not living around Jerusalem or in the highlands in the central of Israel anymore. They're living up north in the Galilee, in the Galilee. Lots of synagogues up there in the 300s until there's a major earthquake which destroys almost every town in northern Israel all at the same time. All right? And then most of it doesn't get rebuilt. So from 200 to 350, post-Mishnah age, you have a lot of Jews living up in that area. From 150 to 200, the Mishnah is being written in Tzipori. Right? There's an amazing synagogue there that we saw on our last trip, which is being uncovered by the archaeologists. Stunning mosaics and everything else from this time. All right, so it's just interesting that they say from here to there, because that's actually where Jews were living, so everyone would have known that distance. All right, Amar Rav Kahana, Mikra. So what's the verse that teaches us the law that she's only required to go chasing after the no good Yavam from a distance from Tiberias to Tzipori, otherwise she's just free to marry? How do we know that? V'kar'u lo ziknei iro, because in the ritual of the chalitza, where he is released by her spitting at him and throwing the sandal and all these things, that's supposed to happen in front of the elders of his city. Okay? V'lo ziknei ira, not the elders of her city. It's the elders of his city. So that's why she has this. She has to go to him, not he has to come to her or whatever. Why is that story there? That story is there because we were talking about whether or not you can adjudicate something in your town or whether you have to go to the specialized court. And this is a unique case where you have to go to his town, not to the court. Right? And she would be required to go to his town.
But it has to be before a court, doesn't it?
Has to be before the elders of his city.
Oh.
So presumably that's going to be a Beit Din, but it's probably a bigger Beit Din. It's probably a minyan. All right, would be my guess. But anyways, v'lo ziknei ira. I'm not an expert in the laws of Yavama, of Yibum. I've been in this field over 20 years, and nobody has ever asked me or been open to doing this ritual in our community. I understand that this is one of the places where you can draw a dividing line. Right? A rabbi who says it's in the Torah, we must do this. Right? That happens within much of Orthodoxy. Right? I don't know a conservative rabbi who does this. So when people want to say the conservative movement doesn't obey every halacha in the Torah, this is one of the examples you can give. And that's a fair criticism.
I mean, think about it, it even preceded the giving of the Torah, this custom.
Why do you say it precedes the giving of the Torah?
Oh, because Yehuda, they didn't get the Torah yet, and we're dealing with this with, as you said.
Because of Tamar and you? Yeah.
So it has to be
We have a story like this that predates the giving of the Torah. Yeah. Okay.
very old custom.
There are other things in that story that evidently predate the Torah, too. Okay, final ruling is rendered regarding the issue of two parties who disagree as to the location of their trial. Amar Amemar. Amemar says, Hilchata. The halacha is, Kofi moto v'yelech limkom havad. We force the party to go to the place of a legitimate court. Amar le Rav Ashi le Amemar. Rav Ashi said to Amemar, V'ha Amar Rabbi Elazar. But Elazar surely said, Kofi moto v'dam be'iro. We force him and we do it in his court, which was the case where if there's a technical problem, we refer to the higher court somewhere else. Amemar says, right? Hani mile hecha de ka'amar le love lamalve. That only applies where the debtor is telling the creditor that he wants to move the court. Aval malve, but a creditor, eved love leish malve, to the lender. So he's going to say that there's a power differential based on who the two people are. If Nat lent me $50,000. Thanks, Nat. I appreciate it. You're a good guy. Nat says, stop kissing up to me and give me my $50,000. And I say, okay, you know what? I really think we should have this case adjudicated in Rochester, New York, where I'm from, and my family's there, and my mother's there, and I might know the judge, right? I don't get to do that as a
Lender.
borrower. I don't get to do that as a borrower. If the lender wants to move it, the lender can move it, according to this. Why? Because the lender is in charge. The borrower is like a slave or a servant to the lender in that, boy, this is ringing true. I'm about to sign a mortgage tomorrow, right? I will be a slave to that mortgage for the next 30 years, right? Unless I pay off earlier. I can't get away from them, right? And if they want me to if they're going to force me to do something, they're going to do it on their terms, right? For sure. I don't really have the power over them to force them to answer my questions or to meet my needs. That's not the dynamic involved in that loan, right? So there's some truth to that. We may not like it, but there's some truth to that. Historical note, this is coming in at the end of a chapter, so you would expect this to be what I have called in the past a dumping ground. This is where things show up that haven't had a place to show up yet. In this case, thank God, it's actually a little bit on topic, but the indicator here is it's Rav Ashi. And Rav Ashi was the last of the rabbis of the Talmud. So he'll very often be at the end of a discussion or the end of a chapter. Because when we talk about the editing of the Talmud, it's happening either by Rav Ashi or by his school. It's his students. He's the last great rabbi of the Talmud. The Talmud is put together after this and shipped out. So we're kind of at the last layer. Talk about layers of history. We're at the last layer here. Okay, notice they have this concept where in the later layers, it does get more restrictive. The later layers seem to show that there are more courts. So the earliest layer was like, you just do it in your town or you make it go to the other court. You don't really have a lot of choices. Whereas here you seem to have more choices and more complexity. So the system of courts seems to have grown during the Talmudic time. All right, now what else? We did that. Gemara states related incidents. So what's going to happen? Oh, speaking of Tiberias, here we go. Shalcha le Lamar Ukva. A court in Tiberias sent a letter to Mar Ukva in Babylon. And it says, Lead Ziv le Kvar, my eyes are not focusing, sorry. Kvar Bitya. Okay, so it's to the one who shines like the son of Bitya. So it's got this beautiful kind of lovey-dovey salutation. To you whose countenance shines like the son of Bitya. Shalom, peace. Ukva ha-bavli kaval de kadamana. Ukva, the Babylonian, complained before us as following. Yirmiyah achi he'evid alai et derech. My brother Jeremiah deprived me of the way of men. Look at the footnote. Everyone got it? Footnote 23.
Yeah.
I'm not reading it out loud.
Okay, that's what I was suspecting.
All right. So the court in Tiberias sends a letter to Mar Ukva, who says, to you whose countenance shines like a well-known person, peace on you. We have a complaint here in Tiberias that says Ukvan the Babylonian complained to us, has now come to us, and complained that Yirmiyah, his brother, did this horrible deed to him, making him not a man anymore. Ve'imrulo, therefore tell him, his brother, Jeremiah, who did this thing, who's still in Babylonia, Hasyuhu v'yir'e panenu b'Tveria, that he should be coerced to come to the court in Tiberias. So what is this? It's a subpoena. The court in Tiberias says we have a case here where someone wants damages because he's been mutilated by his brother, and we are sending to Babylonia a subpoena and an extradition order that he should be sent from Babylonia to Tiberia in the land of Israel. Okay? So, what's going to happen? Hagufa kashya. But this is self-contradictory. Amrat imrulo. First, you say, tell him in order to appease Ukvan, and Alma dayinuhu aton. So evidently, you have already decided the case, right? But you say paninu b'Tveria or hasiuhu v'yirei paninu b'Tveria. He has to come here to be tried in the court. So Alma shadruhu hacha. With this, you evidently mean to instruct to send Jeremiah here for judgment. So which is it? Do you mean to tell Mar Ukva that you adjudicate this case in Babylonia, which is he came before us, or do you want to say that this other guy has to see our face in Tiberias? All right, so that's not exactly clear. Elahachi kamar, but it is going to tell us what it means. This is what it means. They're saying to Mar Ukva, Imrule dayinu atun. Tell Jeremiah to appease Ukvan. That is, you adjudicate his case over there. Eat tzait, and if Jeremiah obeys your ruling, then he has obeyed, and we're done. But if not, then we want the extradition for here. So the question is, have we already adjudicated it here? Do we want you to adjudicate it there? So it says, when they say imrulo, you should say to him, the people in Tiberias are telling the people in Bavel, you shall say to him, meaning you shall adjudicate to him and bring him into court and deal with him there. Or is it, he should come lifaneno, before our faces here in Tiberias? Which is it? So the resolution is, you should deal with him there, and if he follows your ruling, it's done, but if he doesn't, then you have to send him to us. No such thing as double jeopardy. Everyone kind of follow that? So what happens is you have a saying that says, you shall say to him, bring him to us. And then the thinking about that is confused. Well, which is it? Do you want us to say to him, or do you want us to send him to you? Which is it? Happy to do either. And the resolution is yes and yes. It's both. We should, yeah.
Well, is it double
It sounds like
jeopardy?
an appeal, that he's before the court in Babylonia, but then.
Why can't the first court enforce their judgment?
In Bavel?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to do to him.
Well, maybe
Doesn't
they
make any
don't find that
Right.
what they adjudicated was correct. So he's bringing further, so he's appealing.
He might be appealing. This might be a court of appeal, but we generally haven't had appeals in that manner, where you get to ignore the court and say, well, I want to hear a second court. That has not been the way the system has been built. So it's weird. You would think the court would have the authority to enforce it. But in this case, that's what's happening. Again, this is kind of a dumping ground at the end of the chapter. Things at the very end of a chapter don't always make sense, but it might be something that was problematic enough or important enough that we couldn't go by this part of the Talmud without dropping it in here, so that people know that this happened or this could happen. Another interpretation of the message goes like this. Rav Ashi said, Dine knasot hava, it was a case of penalties that needed to be judged. Uvavava lo daine dine knasot. But in Babylonia, they're not allowed to do Torah penalties in that sense. You can't have a fine that's based on a land of Israel law, right? Bavel, for whatever reason, at this point, Rav Ashi, they didn't have the authority to impose fines on people. And you find at different times in different places, the Jewish courts had or didn't have the authority to do certain things. The most obvious one is to put someone to death. So, in medieval Spain, the Jews did not have the authority to execute anybody. They could convict them for death penalty, and then they handed them over to the local noble, the non-Jewish duke of the town, and said, this guy has been judged for death, please execute him. Right? All right, in this case, Rav Ashi says they didn't have the ability to impose fines. So in Israel, you had the ability to impose a fine. In Bavel, you didn't, and that's why they were doing this. Vaha deshalchu le hachi, and the reason they sent this message was that you should adjudicate the case, kedei lechalok kavod lemar ukva, to give respect to Mar Ukva. So Mar Ukva over here has been mutilated, and he's upset, and he wants to have his day in court. He may never see a penny, right? You may sue someone who has nothing and win a judgment for $1 million. It doesn't mean you're ever going to see a penny, but you had your day in court, right? Justice declared that you were harmed and that there's something that gets his day in court, and they sent back that this guy has been a subpoena against him. They know that they don't have the authority and they can't enforce it. He's not gonna go by it. And you should try and send him back here. It might not work either.
So this is like what happened with Jesus. The Jews condemned him,
Mm-hmm.
and the Romans, they couldn't do the execution,
Okay.
but the Romans could.
Right, so according to the New Testament, to the Gospels, there was a trial of Jesus, and the Sanhedrin, as portrayed in their book, says we don't have a law to put a man to death, which is actually false. A Jewish court does have in the land of Israel the ability to put someone to death, but that's how those Gospels portray the Jews, which is, of course, an anti-Semitic portrayal of the Jews. And that they hand him over to Pilate with the hope that Pilate would kill him. Same story has, Jews and rabble-rousers and robbers and villains like manipulating to have him killed and all this kind of stuff. It's a pretty ugly story. And that Pilate's the one who executes him. Yeah. There are similar themes. And that's it.
So what is we shall return to you to?
So, Hadar and Alecha Zeborer. Do we have a minion? We don't have a minion. If we had a minion, we would say a Kaddish now for a siyum on a tractate. Finishing a tractate is a joyous event for which I have brought you coleslaw and fruit in abundance for a siyum. Is there any bread over there?
No,
There's no bread?
just fruit and vegetables.
If I were a drinking man, I'd put a bottle of scotch on the table.
No bread, no beer, no nothing.
Check.
Nah, it's all right. But Hadar and Alecha, is Aramaic for we will return to you. And let me see if I can give you a translation of the special Kaddish that is normally said. I actually don't have it here with me. It's interesting. I thought they published it in this volume. They publish it in the smaller volume. No, they don't, unless it's in the front, which would be silly.
Let's see. We're missing, if a few people were missing were here.
No.
there are a few people who then we have them.
No. Hadar and Alecha is a prayer that says, we will return to you, O tractate, and then the name of the tractate. This is Zeborer. Whenever you finish a chapter or a tractate, you never say, I'm done with that. What you say is, until next time, I will return to you. You have returned to us, and we will return to you. So this chapter of Talmud, which we've now completed, has been alive in the Jewish people, for 1,500 years. But it's not getting read all the time. Now, enough traditional people in the world, it's probably being read somewhere else in the world at any given moment. Yeah, sure. This is a great article. It's a good book. You have the book?
I have this and some of the others that he gave them.
Yeah. So the idea is that it's never over. Everything is always done in a cycle. Just like the Torah is finished and then begun at Simchas Torah, so the Talmud you finish and then you move on to another thing. So we have to decide now, where do we want to go? Did I photocopy more, or is that the end of the photocopy
That's
sheet?
it.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? Look what you guys did. So where do you want to go? Do you want to stay in Sanhedrin, or do you want to pick something that would apply to the fall, like one of the fall holidays? We could be doing stuff around Rosh Hashanah, which will come and go before you know it. We could do stuff around Sukkot, like the sukkah and the lulav and the building of those things. Or we could do something around Passover with the understanding that it's going to take us this long to get all the way to the end of another chapter. What do you guys want? Or do you want to just go into the next chapter of this?
What's the next chapter of this about?
The next chapter of this, it's monetary cases and capital cases. The differences between laws associated with money and laws associated with
Capital case always has to go to a
major court.
right.
The standard of testimony will be higher, the difficulty of executing somebody, what are the laws of execution, all that kind of stuff. That's where it would go next.
Sounds good.
I got,
And then it continues in chapter 5, because you were.
correct,
against them.
correct. We're gonna just stay in the rules of law and testimony and proof and all that kind of stuff. That's one direction, you have a firm basis in it, we can continue, or you can say, I've had enough of this topic, let's do something completely new. Do we vote?
I'm fine with it.
Let's hear what everyone says. I'm a fine. You have a preference? Same stuff or something new?
I like monetary laws.
Continuing. You don't get to pick and choose which laws they're going to talk about, but they would be included. You wouldn't find that in Sukkot. You want to continue with this? Continue with this. Continue? A shrug?
Yeah, we're both 4 and 5. Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we could have a real big.
With the holidays,
You know,
what
you
would
do
they,
one,
what would
finish
they
the,
talk about?
the tractate.
If we did the holidays, it would depend which one we choose. Right? Each holiday has its own major tractate, basically.
And it explains what to do for each holiday?
No, it's like this.
No, we know what to do, it's gonna explain how we got there.
So,
If we continue like it's.
for example, in Sukkot, if it's talking about how to build a sukkah, I already know I need 3 plus a little bit of a wall, and the shade has to be more than the sun and all that kind of stuff. But it's going to go through pages of argument about why and why
You
not.
taught that already, you did that.
Yeah, we did laws of Sukkot years ago, a number of years ago, a few years ago.
I
Yeah.
remember doing that.
Okay, so we'll do Sanhedrin, but none of you have the text in front of you, so we should probably just stop for today, and I'll,
Well, I mean, when you
I would
did
be
five,
reading it to
when you
you.
did 5, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? You didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't have the text in front of us.
Okay,
either.
I'll read it. If any of you has a smartphone,
4 and 5 about the same, I mean, do we want to do 4 and 5, or just 4?
well, let's do 4 and see how we feel, right? To commit to 4 and 5.
Will you have it by next week?
I'll have it for you for next week, sure. What's that?
I think the beginning isn't as interesting because it's the laws of, the temple.
Which, 5?
No, the beginning of the
This
first,
one?
Oh, chapter 1 of Sanhedrin.
yeah, we never did that, did we?
Oh, so there's a motion on the table to go all the way back to
No, no, no,
chapter
no, I
1.
wanna go back. No, I'm saying not to, I don't think it's interesting.
Okay, I think we're staying on 4, and you're saying I should read the Mishnah to you. So the first Mishnah in chapter 4 is lengthy.
You don't have to. If you
No, I'm happy to. I don't, where do I have to go? I have this time blocked for you. The first Mishnah of the chapter consists of rules and procedures for judging monetary cases and comparing those to judging capital cases. So it's kind of like what we read in Mishnah 5 as well. All right. Echad dinei mamonot ve'echad dinei nefashot. Monetary and capital cases are the same. B'drisha u'v'chakira. Oh, is this the one we did? Yeah.
did chapter 5.
All right, well, this is chapter 4. There shall be one regarding inquiry and questioning. Okay, so remember, drisha and chakira are 2 categories of questions posed to the witnesses. The drisha is where, when, what, and so forth, and the chakira is asking supplemental questions about it. Or is it the other way around? Chakira is the inquiry, and the drisha is the additional questionary. Okay, so chakira is date, time, place, and all that stuff, and drisha is more questions I want to ask. So monetary and capital cases are the same for chakira and drisha. Shene'emar, as it is said, mishpat echad yeh lachem. There shall be one law for you. Ma bein dinei mamonot li dinei nefashot. What difference is there between monetary and capital then? Because we know there's a difference. The differences are dinei mamonot bishlosha. Monetary cases, you have a panel of 3 judges. Dinei nefashot be'esrim ushlosha. The capital cases, you need a beit din of 23 judges.
Wow.
Dinei mamonot potchim bein lizechut bein lechova. Monetary cases open either with somebody, the questioning or the evidence for him being guilty or non-guilty. Dinei nefashot potchim lizechut ve'ein potchim lechova. But in a capital case, the first statements must be the statements in defense of the accused, not those that would convict him to death. Dinei mamonot matin al pi echad bein lizechut bein lechova. Monetary cases are decided on the basis of a majority of 1, whether letting him off the hook or obligating him to pay. Dinei nefashot matin al pi echad lizechut ve'al pi shnayim lechova. But in a capital case, if you're going to acquit him and free him, that can be a simple majority. But if you're going to convict him, you need to have a majority plus 2. So you need to have a majority not of a vote of 1. It can't be a vote of 12 to 11. It has to be a vote of 13 to 10 in order to convict him.
This is interesting, because I'm running wondering, a grand jury in New Jersey, you have to have 23 people, and you need a majority of 12. to
Really?
be done,
Yeah.
Yes.
Huh. That's
They follow the.
serendipitous.
Were they following this town?
That's very interesting. I never knew that.
They-
Huh.
Because the first time I ever had jury duty, I was on a grand jury. It's-
Who knew? I hope the conspiracy theorists are not listening to that.
You said you was 12 or 13 commission?
12, well, no, in New Jersey, 12.
Yeah, but in here you said 13.
Yeah.
13 in capital cases, 12 in monetary.
Well, the monetary.
No, you only need one in monetary.
Oh, well, yeah, because it's 2 to 1, right. Duh. Okay. Dine mamanot machzirin bein lizachut bein lechova. In monetary cases, they can be reversed either in favor of acquittal or conviction. So, in other words, if other evidence comes up, remember those cases, and you could go back and you could give the opposite verdict. That can happen with money. Dine nefashot machzirin lizachut ve'ein machzirin lechova. If it's a capital case and you were acquitted, it doesn't matter if new evidence comes up, you've been acquitted.
So double jeopardy.
There's no
Right,
appeal.
right. You can't, but if he had been, no, there is double jeopardy. If you have been convicted, they can go redo the case to let you off the hook.
Right, but the double jeopardy is you were let off the hook the first time, they can't bring you back,
Can't
everyone
bring you
said,
back.
yeah.
Okay, all right, good enough. Dine mamanot hakol milamdim zechut v'chova. In monetary cases, anyone can talk an argument for letting him off or convicting him. Dine nefashot hakol milamdim zechut ve'ein hakol milamdim chova. But in capital cases, anyone may advance an argument for acquittal, but not everyone may advance an argument for conviction. Remember, we had a talk about people who can benefit from you getting executed, right? Is that somebody who you would hear from or not, right, in the case? Dinei mamanot hamilamed chova milamed zechut. In monetary cases, a person who advances an argument for conviction may later also advance an argument for acquittal, right? So the same witness can testify as a hostile witness and as a witness on behalf of the defense. Hamilamed zechut milamed chova. And one who advances an argument for the opposite, for acquittal, can also then turn and become a hostile witness for conviction. You can use a witness both ways, either way, either starting for acquittal or starting for. Okay, dinei nafshot hamilamed chova milamed zechut. In the case of capital cases, if somebody testifies in a way that would convict you, they can then later testify in a way that would acquit you. That's permitted. Aval hamilamed zechut ein yachol lachazor lilamed chova. But a person who testified to let you off the hook cannot then come back and testify to convict you for the death penalty. Dinei mamanot danin bayom v'gormim balayla. Monetary cases can be tried during the day, but not finished until in the evening. Dinei nefashot danin bayom v'gormim bayom. A capital case has to be decided on that very day.
In other words, capital case is a one-day court.
It is a one-day court.
Now,
Cannot-
what is a capital case?
Death penalty. That's the phrase that means a death penalty case. A case where if you are convicted, you will be executed. So all these higher standards are being done in the case of somebody who will lose their life, compared to somebody who will just have to pay a fine.
What's the logic to having it one day if you have a lot of witnesses one way or another?
If the case is not so clear, they don't want an execution.
Okay.
It should be clear enough to try in a single day. Remember, how many witnesses do you need?
All right, makes sense.
2.
2. Doesn't matter if you have 20 witnesses. You're going to put your best 2 witnesses there and you're done. Right? But all of these things make it harder to execute someone. Right? You could just see there's not a single one of these rulings that is on the favor of a hawkish court. Right? These are all kind of a dovish position on the law. Dinei nafshot danin bayom gormim bayom. Dinei mamanot gormim bo bayom bein lizechut bein lechova. Monetary cases may be concluded on the same day, whether to acquit or to convict him. Dinei nafshot gormim bo bayom lizechut Capital cases may be concluded on that day for acquittal, uvayom shela'acharav lechovah, but only on the following day for the conviction. Now, what does that mean? Doesn't that contradict what we just said? The idea is you've finished the court case, but you're gonna, as far as hearing all the witnessing and everything, but you're gonna make those judges sleep on it. You're not gonna have new evidence coming in overnight. It has to have been clear as day, so to speak, but you're gonna make the judges sleep on it.
That's if it happens at night?
No, the court case for death penalty has to happen during the day. The entire case has to be tried and completed during the day, and the judges have, if they're acquitting him, they're gonna acquit him during the day, but if they're gonna convict him and sentence him to death, they have to sleep on it.
They discourage them.
So then the case goes on more than one day.
The case doesn't go on.
Oh, okay.
No, the
The
execution-
judge's deliberation about announcing the final verdict has to wait till the next day.
Do the judges have an alternative, like in American courts, if it's first degree murder, can they say, well, in the second one, we're gonna punish him somehow?
Remember, there's no death row. The person was taken outside and killed.
Right, but I'm saying,
Right.
but in other words, that's the only outcome of that court,
What?
that he's either killed or he's not killed.
He's killed or he's freed. There's
Right.
nothing else.
Okay.
And he's free during that same day.
He's let go and he walks out, right? So the problem is if you have a system where you're allowing somebody to bring new evidence to let him go free, but the execution is summary, then how does that work?
Yeah.
So by making the judges sleep on it, it gives time for the family to go, panic off. We need those witnesses who didn't make it in. You gotta come, you gotta come, you gotta come, whatever it is, right? It just creates a little space, right? Again, it's a dovish approach. It's a hesitancy, right? We don't rejoice that we got him and now we're gonna kill him,
So if we have other witnesses, so somebody go, hey, judges, we got another witness the next morning.
right?
You can do
And
that.
then
You
that
can-
can be heard
can
the
go.
next day.
You
That's
can.
extending the-
You can do that.
Well, then it's.
You can only do that for zechut,
Oh,
to acquit him.
to acquit,
You cannot do that in the opposite direction.
Oh,
only for acquittal.
Okay, lefichach ein danin lo be'erev Shabbat v'lo be'erev Yom Tov. And that's why we never hold a beit din on Erev Shabbat or Erev Yom Tov. And Erev doesn't mean Friday night, it means Friday day. So you never have a beit din on Friday day because it's impossible to sleep on it and on the next morning get up and do your beit din work because it's Shabbat or it's Yom Tov, right? So so you can't do that. You need to give them the ability to convict and wait. And that means a beit din can't be on Friday, and
Yeah,
it can't
but
be.
it's
the-
obvious,
Can't be
if
on
they,
any
if they
holiday.
don't release, if they don't release him that day and they sleep on it.
Everyone
it's
knows he's been
obvious.
convicted. Yeah, sure, he's not walking free. But that's really gonna be a wake-up call to anybody who didn't have evidence to let him off the hook. It gives you a moment. It just gives you a moment. Okay? Now, that Dinei Mamonot, Hatumot, V'Hataharot, Matchilin Min Hagadol. So when you're judging cases that have to do with money or tuma and tahara, impurity and purity, we begin from the biggest category and move to the smallest category. Dinei nefashot matchilim min hatzad. In capital cases, we begin from the side. Okay. Actually, this says here the footnote is not saying from the biggest category; it's from the most important judge. So in cases of money, purity and impurity, the most senior judge is the one who asks their questions first, and then you work your way down the pecking order. In the case of capital cases, you start on the side with the less eminent judge, right? Why? If you're the junior judge, and the senior judge tells you what he thinks,
he
the-
overrules.
it is very possible that you are going to say, oh, well, I'm going to adjust my thinking. And it's okay in money cases, that might make things go quicker. But in a capital case, we're going to make sure that junior judge speaks first, so that everybody has had a chance to talk without being pressured or prejudiced. Right? Again, it's a license to convict in a capital case. Hakol ksherim ladun dinei mamonot. Anybody can be a judge in monetary cases. Ve'ein hakol ksherim ladun dinei nefeshot. But not everybody is eligible to judge a capital case. So, remember, we had stories in the last chapter about you're out in the middle of chutzpah and you need to put a beit din together, and you might just put a beit din together, like 3 guys at Minyan one morning, right? And they're just going to judge it the best they can. You can't do that. There's no drumhead trials, right, in Judaism. And the ein hakol ksherim ladun dinei nefeshot ella kohanim leviim v'yisraelim ha-masi'in lekahuna. Only Kohanim, Leviim, and Yisraelim who are eligible to marry their daughters to the Kohanim are the ones who can judge. So, what does it mean, everybody? If Kohanim, Leviim, and Yisraelim who are eligible to marry? Who's a Yisraelite who's not eligible to marry his daughter off to a Kohen? Somebody who has a problem. Either a lineage problem or a legal problem. Right? That's the Mishnah. So we're going to go from there. So we'll stop here. That's a good place to stop.